are the simple things, the smile on your face, the joy it brings, the feeling inside takes my breath away. What you give brightens up my day. There's nothing better than love. Feel your warm embrace, your hug, your touch. Never wanna imagine life without you. There's nothing better than love. Something so magical feels unreal. A fantasy place where children live. I feel like a princess in a fairy tale. You came along and you changed my world. There's nothing better than love. Feel your warm embrace, your hug, your touch. Give me more darkness, said the blind man. Give me more folly, said the fool. Give me stone silence, said the deaf man. I didn't believe Sunday school. Take it away, said the hungry man. Although I'm starving, I'll get by. Take it away, said the thirsty man. I'll find a drink before I die. I've got plenty of time to think of heaven, but right now there's too much on my mind. And I've had enough of that religious stuff. And besides, I can't relate to your kind. Whoa.
Well, good morning and welcome to Sunday School. I am your teacher for the morning, Alonzo Richard Fleming Jr., and I thank you for joining me this morning for Sunday School on October 30th. I mean, this year is passing so fast. It's passing so fast. I mean, the holiday season, my favorite time of year, is fastly approaching, and I'm looking forward to that. Kwanzaa, Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year's Eve, all those holidays. I just really vibe during that time. You know, my dad used to have a ritual during the holiday season. He would take off work for that quarter of the year, October, November, December, and he would really pay close attention to his family. It was a time of renewal, a time of forgiveness, a time that we as a family reconcile with each other. And I still use that in my family with my boys to this day. But thank you for joining me for Sunday School. Let me turn the music off and let's get right into the lesson this morning. The title of our lesson for Sunday School this morning is Karma, Generational Curses, and the Power of Forgiveness. Karma, Generational Curses, and the Power of Forgiveness is our lesson for this morning. And what this lesson is designed to do, ladies and gentlemen, is to free us from the illusions that there is a power that there is something that can reach down and oppress us and cause us to be in a place of victimhood. Karma, generational curses, and the power of forgiveness. You are not a victim. The victim mentality is brought about by the ego's desire to control us and to cause us to relinquish the power that we have to something or some other power. And this other power that we are relinquishing to is really an illusion of power. And so we're going to deal with that this morning, how to release yourself from these generational curses, how to release us from karmic debt, and how to exercise the power of forgiveness. So first we'll start with karma, and we'll give a few ideas of what that is all about, and then we'll move right on through all the different terms here. Karma is from ancient India, and it is an ancient idea that this lifetime is used to learn certain lessons as well as pay back certain debts that you may or may not have, that you may have created in a previous life. And we often talk about karma. Karma is found in a lot of writings. It has even snuck into the interpretation of the Bible. And it basically is talking about a law that causes balance in the universe, that you cannot get and you can't take without receiving that which you have taken back, or the payment you must pay. And so as a result of that, we accumulate karmic debt as a result of that. This is an ancient Indian, and I'm talking about from the nation of India, as rather than the commonly American Indian idea. And so a lot of us who engage in superstition deal with karma and don't understand it. But there's a problem with that belief. If you're holding that belief, that I'm going to illuminate this morning and allow us to free ourselves so we can function under the power that was given to us, given to our minds, and has yet to be taken away from that mind, though it may be hidden and buried under a lot of illusions, a lot of superstitions, a lot of religious dogmas that we have accumulated over the course of our life. Generational curses, I think this is primarily an African American idea, and it operates under karma, the idea of karma, that you are passing on curses just like you are passing on DNA to your offspring. And these curses come into the form of different situations that occur over and over in our families as generations come and go. For example, if you have a generation of, say, some abuse of children or something to that nature, well, a curse would be something along the lines of different generations. This is simply happening over and over and over. Or going to prison could be a generational curse that you see everybody say the third child is always going to prison, or something along that line. Or generational curse could be an attitude where a man, for example, cannot be faithful to one woman, or something along those lines. Or a woman has a generational curse where she can't get married and want to get married, but because nobody from great grandma was able to get married and keep a man. All of these things, the karma and generational curses, fall under the Course in Miracles. Well, it talks about, of course, the Course in Miracles talks about what these fall under. That there's something specially monstrous about your existence, that you have to pay for a debt that you don't know you even have, or that you have to suffer a curse based on someone else passing it down from you. This comes, ladies and gentlemen, through not understanding who you are, not understanding the power that was invested in you, and not understanding the power of your mind. That you are a victim. That you are subject to a power that can reach down and oppress you. And we deal with these in terms of devils, demons, spirits, that they have some power to oppress you. And so they come under the form of generational curses and karma. And so we're going to talk about dissolving karma and releasing generational curses. That's what we're going to talk about today. And we're going to talk about it through the power of forgiveness. Now, let me read out of the Course in Miracles briefly to help you understand your real power. See, because this is what you got to deal with. Your real power. You have a power that is not relying on someone else or what someone else does. So these curses and this idea of karma comes, the Course in Miracles talks about this, and it comes under the laws of chaos. It is described as the laws of chaos. You know, we have these sayings, you reap what you sow. What comes around goes around. You must pay. Payback is a dog. These are all sayings, ladies and gentlemen, that puts you in the position of a victim. And A Course in Miracles is where I want to start out with my dealing with my subject here. I want to make this as the foundational verse here. Under the Course in Miracles, chapter 23, talking about the laws of chaos, listen carefully to this. The laws of chaos can be brought to light, though never understood. Chaotic laws are hardly meaningful, and therefore out of reason's sphere. Chaotic laws are outside of reason. That's what it means. Yet they appear to be an obstacle to reason and to truth. So we're going to look upon them calmly, that we may look beyond them, understanding what they are, not what they would maintain. So we're going to talk about what chaotic laws are, and not really deal with chaotic laws, with what chaotic laws can do, because they really can't be understood. That really can't be understood. It is essential to be understood what they are, for because it is their purpose to make meaningless and to attack the truth. Here are the laws that rule the world you made. Now in the Bible it talks about he was in the world and the world was made by him, but the world knew him not. It's not talking about an individual. It's talking about a sonship, a collection of the Son of God. So this is, here are the laws that rule the world that you made. You made the world and you made the laws that rule the world. Yet they govern nothing. So these laws you made govern nothing. They are a figment of your imagination, a concoction, a hallucination. And long as you submit your mind under these laws that you made, you will never get the opportunity to see yourself and the law and live up under the God level laws, the laws that are beyond your making and that are for your benefit. And so, yet they govern nothing and need not be broken, merely looked upon and gone beyond. You see, the laws of karma, the laws of generational curses, we don't have to break them. We just look beyond them and experience what is beyond them. So the first law of chaos is this, that truth is different for everyone. I got my truth, you got your truth, we got our truth. This is a law of chaos which cannot be understood. Truth is different for everyone. So you have 7.5 billion people on the planet, and under the law of chaos, you have 7.5 billion truths regarding the very same thing. This produces chaos. This produces violence. This produces a lack of the ability to communicate, because truth under that scenario is different for everyone. So like all these principles under chaos, this one maintains that each is separate and has a different set of thoughts that set him off from others. This principle evolves from the belief that there is a hierarchy in illusions. Some illusions are more valuable and therefore true. So I'm going to just deal with that one under the law of chaos. It's under the illusion that it's under the belief that there is a hierarchy of illusion, that one illusion is more valuable than the other illusion. In the movie The Matrix, I remember this one particular scene where this gentleman was making a deal with the ones who are trying to destroy those who are breaking out of the Matrix. And he's sitting there eating a steak while he's collaborating with the enemy. And he says, I know this juicy steak that I'm eating. I know this glass of wine that I'm drinking is delicious and it's all an illusion, but let me stay in my illusion. Because he's saying that one illusion is more valuable. Being able to sit with the enemy and drink wine and eat juicy steaks is more valuable than another illusion. So this is the first law of chaos, is that everyone has a different truth. And this is based on the laws that you made and the world that you made. So we now have to go beyond these laws in order to experience the God level of thinking. So in the Bible, there is a verse that says, let no man deceive you, for God is not mocked. For as a man soweth, that shall he also reap. If one sows to the flesh, he shall of the flesh reap corruption. If he sows to the Spirit, he shall of the Spirit reap life. And so this verse has been used as a warning to us about our behavior. Don't be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man sows, that shall he also reap. So this is given to us as a warning. But I'm here to share with you this morning, ladies and gentlemen, that this is not a warning, but an assurance, a reassurance about your power. Here's how this really works. If you read that verse, God is the subject, and God is typified as a man. Let no man deceive you. God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man sows, that too shall he also reap. the subject is God. And it's saying that God is typifying God as a man and saying God is not mocked. See, so because whatever God sows, that's what God reaps. If God sowed to the spirit, but you was able to bring about the flesh, then you can mock God. See, because you would be able to say, well, wait a minute, God, you created man in your likeness and in your image, but here man is a sinner. That's mocking God. You can mock God because his laws have no meaning. His word has no meaning. You can mock God, but God is not mocked. He created you and me after his image and likeness, and that is what you are. God is not mocked. And when I talk about God, I get into this conversation with my middle boy, who is just a brilliant scientist. I have to remind you that when I'm talking about God, I'm not talking about some guy in the sky and there's some space between you, us and him. There's a space. There's God, there's a space, and there's you and me. No, God is all in all. There is nothing that is not of God. That is the level that I'm talking about. But getting to this scripture that I was reading, God is not mocked. It is an assurance to you. It is a reassurance that you are today exactly what God created you to be, and that you have not changed, and that no one could have made a decision to turn you from the image and likeness of God to the dust of the earth. No one could have made a decision to turn you from the righteous and holy to sinful. God is not mocked. I'm bringing you into the knowledge of the truth. I'm bringing you into the knowledge of yourself, under the idea that you can be turned from what God created you as blessed into cursed would be mocking God. So when you talk about generational curses, where did that come from? When you talk about karma, where did that come from? That you got to pay karma and then come back here over and over and do it over and over again until you get it right. And if you don't know what you are paying for, you could be paying for a particular thing that's not part of the karmic debt. You never know what you're paying for, and you're always off guard. You're always unsure of yourself because you have no ability to realize when you have paid and what you have paid for. It's under the laws of chaos. But God is not mocked. Listen, under the laws of chaos, each truth is individualized. And so as a result of that, there is no such thing as truth. There's nothing you can rely on. There's nothing that you could put your hand on and be able to have confidence in. Because you're paying some karmic debt. You're under the curse of a generational thing that has occurred even before you were born. This is the story and the deception of the Adam and Eve story, that some man long ago mocked God by being able to pass down not blessings but cursing to the human family. But God is not mocked. So for whatsoever God sows, that too shall also God reap. Did God reap sin? Did God reap corruption? Or did God sow sin? Did God sow corruption? I say not. Now, this whole idea can be done as an individual, this whole karmic debt, this curses, generational curses, or a nation can take on this idea of a generational curse. And when a nation is functioning under this idea, you see it in its confusion and its violence against itself. Because what is happening, the nation is now attributing to the mind the purpose of the body. And it just can't happen. Your mind is beyond your body. Your mind is greater than your body. So when the body is held up to be more valuable than the mind, or when one body is deemed to be more valuable than another body, then you are functioning under the laws of chaos, which makes one illusion more valuable to another illusion. But they're both illusions. It is of the Antichrist, and it's a very dangerous concept. One other point I want to make before I move on is the idea, again, I want to re-emphasize it, is that you don't know all the things you have done that need to be paid for. So how can you pay for it? You don't know all the curses that have been passed on, say, from the founding of the nation or the humanity coming onto the planet. You don't know. How do you do this? How could you even begin to know where to start to deal with generational curses and to break generational curses? There is no place, ladies and gentlemen. The only thing we can do, which is the only mathematical equation that solves the problem, is to know what they are and then look beyond them. There's no need to try to deal with them one by one, because each one that you think you've dealt with and moved out of the way, another one immediately rises and takes its place. And so your whole life will be spent trying to pay karmic debt or escape or deal with generational curses. So how do we dissolve karmic debt? And how do we escape generational curses? I'm glad you asked. I want to talk about forgiveness. And I want to talk about it from two levels. The first level I want to speak about forgiveness is the level of personal experience. And the second level I want to talk about it is in terms of law. I guess I should talk about it in terms of law first and then talk about personal experience testing out this law. But I want to talk about forgiveness for the purpose of dissolving karmic debt and escaping generational curses, whatever your generational curse is or whatever you think it is. You don't have to deal with them one at a time. There's too many. Too many thoughts you have built around these curses, so you will never escape in a lifetime unless you have access to the mathematical equation that would allow you to escape. And it is nothing but a change of mind. But the difficulty with changing the mind from one way of thinking to another way of thinking is the process, because what we find ourselves doing is trying to hold on to this part of this thought system that has not worked and get rid of some of the other. But that's the reason it takes time. But if we relinquish the thought system altogether, then the problem and the miracle and the forgiveness will appear immediately. And that's the problem with applying, I should say, the solution. So what is forgiveness? A lot of people have a hard time with this concept of forgiveness, and most of the reasons that we have a hard time with forgiveness is because we don't understand what forgiveness is. Forgiveness has been used by the ego to put you in a victim mentality, a victim state. And that is against your nature. So who would want to forgive under that circumstance? If forgiveness means that you have to be a victim. What is forgiveness? We talk about Jesus coming for the purpose of forgiving sin. What does all that mean? We have people do things to us, and we try to forgive them, and we say, I will forgive, but I can never forget. You see. So what is forgiveness? I think a better way to approach that question, ladies and gentlemen, is to first deal with what forgiveness is not. And once we rule those things out, we'll be able to better grasp the nature of forgiveness and the law of forgiveness. Forgiveness, number one, does not follow the laws of the laws of the world. It does not follow the laws of the world. I just mentioned it to you, and that law is I forgive, but I'm not going to forget. Or he did this to me, but you understand, I'm going to let it go. But I ain't going to forget it, and I'm certainly not going to give him another chance to do it again. Forgiveness does not follow the laws of the world. Forgiveness is not making sin real and then pardoning it. That is not forgiveness. Since forgiveness does not follow the laws of the world, you cannot, well, let me put it to you this way and let you come to your own conclusion. Let's suppose that someone took some money from you, and you decided that you were going to forgive them, but they had to pay the money back. Well, there's a problem there. If you forgive the debt, you cannot ask for payment. If you ask for payment, you did not forgive. They paid you. So let me show you how this works at the God level. They say that we did something to offend God, and there was nothing we could do to resolve that offense that we had done to God. And God is pissed off. He pissed off, he angry, he mad. He got thunderclouds, and he's pissed off at what we have done to him by disobeying a commandment that he gave. And it didn't matter what we did to try to resolve the matter. It wasn't good enough. So God is holding sin over the head of humanity for pissing him off. I'm using these sacrilegious words for a reason. I want to snap something in your mind. I want to snap the chain that changed your mind to the ego and prevents you from observing your God or your creator or whatever. So, because we couldn't do anything, God had to come up a sacrifice, which was his own child, and sent his child to be murdered and shed his blood so that God could forgive. And as a result, we say that Jesus paid it all. He paid for the sins of humanity. The Bible even reasons in the book of Romans that as one man disobeyed and all became sinners, so the obedience of one man made us all righteous. So under the scenario, God accepted this sacrifice as payment for sin. But there's a problem here. Because we say God forgave sin, but yet Jesus paid it all. How can you at the same time demand payment and forgive? If you demand payment, you didn't forgive the debt, you demanded payment of the debt. If you forgive, then you don't demand payment of the debt because the debt is no longer in existence. So if you see yourself as forgiving like that, you will naturally see God as forgiving and functioning like that. That, ladies and gentlemen, is not forgiveness. Forgiveness is not making sin real, then pardoning it. Forgiveness is not happily taking a hurt while someone else gains from it. That is also not forgiveness. You don't, I'm just going to forgive. That's not forgiveness. Taking a hurt. That is sacrifice. God, put your seatbelts on. Ladies and gentlemen, God does not forgive sin. The reason God does not forgive sin is because God has never accused you of sin, and it takes an accusation for you to be at fault with something. And so going back to that verse, God is not mocked, for whatsoever God sowed, that shall he also reap. How does God need to forgive you of something that he didn't sow? He did not sow sin. He did not sow corruption. She did not sow corruption and sin. And so she has no need to forgive that because she has never accused you of it. Let that sit on you for a minute or two. So then, if those things are not forgiveness, what is forgiveness? I mean, Jesus talked about loving your enemy as you love yourself. It said, be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. This is your response. Love your enemy. Do good to them that curse you, that despitefully use you. How can you do this? I ain't loving my enemy. Man, that's stupid. Now, I know what the mind of the ego does when someone talks about loving your enemy. But if you don't have an understanding of what your enemy is, you will not understand how you can love your enemy. If you do not understand who your enemy is, you will not understand how to forgive your enemy and how to love your enemy. You will not understand how to do good to them that despitefully use you, and you will not have access to the power of forgiveness, which is beyond the world and the laws of the world that you made. Preach, Dr. Fleming. Preach it. This is the freedom I'm talking about here. this is the freedom that's waiting for us all. Listen to me. When the woman in the Bible was caught in adultery, it was the preachers who went out and found her and brought her to the temple. You look at the symbolism of that, you can come up with some weird things. They out there looking for sinners to bring the sinner to the church to kill her. You think about that. Those are symbols. When Jesus told his people on the mount to love your enemy, you know, we got the Beatitudes. That's when he told them that. He said many things there in that situation. And he was giving his people, his brothers and sisters, access to something that is beyond the body. And the ancient Egyptians understood this, what I'm about to share with you. But you know it because we read the Bible and Quran, and this is what has saturated this country and these people here. But Jesus and the ancient Nubians understood what I'm about to tell you. And if we can grasp the scepter of power of what I'm about to share with us, then we will make a giant step towards taking our planet, taking humanity to become a type 1 civilization where we recognize our connections to one another. Our connection to one another, ladies and gentlemen, is not of the body. How do you love your enemy as yourself? In the Course in Miracles, there is a lesson, number 199, and I'm going to read just a portion of it to lay the foundation of what forgiveness is on you. Freedom must be impossible as long as you perceive a body as yourself. The body is a limit. Who would seek for freedom in a body looks for it where it cannot be found. The mind can be made free when it no longer sees itself as in a body, firmly tied to it and sheltered by its presence. Listen, if this were the truth, the mind were vulnerable indeed. The mind that serves the Holy Spirit, listen, is unlimited forever in all ways, beyond the laws of time and space, unbound by any preconceptions, and with strength and power to do whatever it is asked. That is the mind that serves the Holy Spirit, which is beyond the body. And it's difficult for the scientific mind to understand this. But we're coming into the understanding that we are more than the body. We're slow, but we're coming to it. Attack thoughts cannot enter such a mind because it has been given to the source of love, and fear can never enter in a mind that has attached itself to love. It rests in God. And who can be afraid who lives in innocence and only loves? Jesus said to love your brother or love your enemy as yourself. Think about that sentence just a second. Carefully. Love your enemy as yourself. Now, the word as ties one thing to another and gives those things the same identity, but is metaphorically speaking in one sense, but it ties two different things that are perceived to be different, I should say, as the same. You see. So loving your enemy as yourself brings your enemy to yourself and puts your enemy on the same level as yourself. But how could you love an enemy that is different from yourself if you love your enemy as yourself? This word as is similar to an equal sign in mathematics. 3 plus 2 is equal to 5. On both sides of the equal sign, though they have different forms, they are the same. As yourself. When Jesus spoke this and said this, he was talking to the people on the Sermon of the Mount, and he tied the enemy to the self. So the self is the enemy. Love your enemy as yourself. Love yourself as your enemy. The self, ladies and gentlemen, is the enemy. So now the Pharisees and scribes and Sadducees and all the C's was ticked because they were using the Romans as the devil, the manifestation, the physical manifestation of the spirit of the devil. And they were making money, getting paid, getting disciples by keeping them in fear of the devil, who is their enemy. You cannot, Jesus was not talking about the Romans when he said your enemy. He was talking about the self is your enemy. And so if the self is the enemy, where is this enemy hiding at? In your mind. This enemy to your freedom, liberation, this enemy to your justice is hiding in the self. Love your enemy as yourself. So you go into the self, discover the enemy, and recognize that this self, this enemy, you have misinterpreted your enemy being yourself. And love your enemy. So what is forgiveness? Forgiveness starts with your enemy. Forgiveness starts with yourself. And so how do you now use this idea to release yourself from the pain of the past? How do you forgive? How do you use this idea, this law, to relinquish oppression? To think that there's someone coming down on you and oppressing you, be it as an individual, as a family, as a group, as a race, as a nation. How do we do it? Forgiveness, ladies and gentlemen, is selective memory. And so you heard the expression that Feed the thing you want to grow, starve the thing you don't. You've heard that expression. This is in the realm of thinking also. If you feed love to your mind, forgiveness to your mind, love and forgiveness grows, fear dissipates, and who becomes vulnerable if they're not attracting it through fear? You're no longer vulnerable. So, selective remembering. What are you going to remember? Only the expressions of love that you receive, and only the expressions of love that you gave. Now, I know that a lot of y'all you done gone into outer space and start talking about, well, what if? What if this? What if that? What if this happened? What if that happened? What if this, that, and the other? Well, here is how you can do this. If it hasn't happened to you, don't worry about it with respect to doing this. When it happens to you, if and when it happens to you, then you deal with that. But right now, even the Bible understands this. He said, you have not resisted to the shedding of blood. So it's easy for you. If you haven't shedded blood, if you haven't done this, whatever thing you concocting in your mind, well, what if this? What if somebody did this? Did they do it to you? If they did, then deal with it at that level. But don't put that as trying to undermine the principle. Selective remembering is remembering only the expressions of love that you received and the love that you gave. Let me get a little personal. I'm a divorced man. I've been single man for 10 years now. And I never thought that I would be a single dad. It never occurred to me in my wildest imagination that I would be a single. And the thing that transpired that precipitated the whole breakup, and I talk about this because I like to talk about reality in terms of what we're really dealing with and not pretending that we okay. There's a reason that I've never said anything on Facebook or Twitter or anything evil about my previous relationship. Because I recognize that the forgiveness is the forgiveness of myself. So I purposely tested what A Course in Miracles said about selective remembering. You see, when you were in a relationship, a love relationship, you once told that person, I love you. You once looked that person in the eye and was in love with that person. But then something happened and it seemed to have covered up the love. And so after we get in the situation to where we are broken up, we can see no good in that person because all of the so-called bad things have now covered up the years of love that was expressed in the relationship. Oh, ladies, if you hear me, you're going to be ready. You're going to be ready. You're going to be ready, brothers. You listen to this, what I'm saying here. So the selective memory, and this selective memory is not of your choosing. But if you open your mind up to allow the remembrance of the expressions of love that you received and the expressions of love that you gave, it is an easy thing to do in your relationship that have been breached. And it's safe to do. You don't have to go out and find somebody that killed your father. My father was killed. That's a big deal. That's hard to deal with. But I can deal with something that's much closer to me. So do a little thing. Take the relationship, the former relationship that you have had, and I don't care how many you've had, and allow the expressions of love that you received from that individual to surface. You say, well, Dr. Fleming, I don't have anything like that. They didn't ever show me any love. Open yourself up, because a person is either sending you love or calling to be loved. But selective remembrance of the expressions of love that you received and the expressions of love that you gave will dissipate the anger, will dissipate the mistrust, will dissipate the feelings of being alone, will dissipate the feeling, the sense that I need. It will dissipate the sense of inadequacy. It will dissipate the sense of not being good enough. It will dissipate the sense of low self-esteem. The laws of chaos that mock God that you are holding in your mind, it will dissipate it when you allow only the expressions of love that you receive and the expressions of love that you gave in any relationship that you've had. Our world needs to be dealt with. I'm starting with us. Because that's where I am. Now listen. When you experience this, you will smile. Now, let me tell you what I do to my sons. I'm getting personal because I want you to really see that I'm not talking stuff, but I've tested this at least in my own life. I often, especially when we're cooking together, like we were cooking yesterday, cooking dinner together. And one of my sons said something, and it cracked us all up. And I said, your mama used to do the same thing. And we all started talking about her, and it was in glowing terms. But I have never went to my boys and spoke ill about their mother. I have never tried to keep them away from her because of my own sense of anger. And don't think that the thoughts didn't come. Don't think that I didn't have the sense that, yeah, I'm in a position now, I can drop down, I can do this. Oh, yeah. Don't think that those didn't come. But I allowed myself to selectively remember. And I kept on, kept on, kept on, kept on, and kept on, and kept on, and kept on. And before I knew it, the things that were painful, I could speak about with no emotional attachment or anger or sense of hatred or sense of despise. And so healing our personal relationships, ladies and gentlemen, is the first order of business if you want unity. You want unity? Heal yourself in your own family. So this selective memory and starting with your enemy, which is in here, is the first order of business. The second thing is to realize that what you are offended about never happened. Oh, and that's a hard one. That's a hard one to deal with. Because your fleshly mind, again, creates examples. You don't know what I've been through. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a hard one to deal with, but the law of forgiveness is beyond the mind, or beyond the body, I should say. See, the law of forgiveness follows the law that God is not mocked. Whatsoever he sowed, that too shall he also reap. The law of forgiveness follows the law that says that all things work together for the good to them that love God and are called according to his grace. Now, this is not a statement for you to rule out somebody else when it says all things work together for the good to them that love God. I'm always talking about how we learned it in church. It was a way for the preachers to eliminate somebody from the family of God. But that's not what it's talking about. For we know, listen, that all things work together for good to them that love God. It has nothing to do with how you were baptized. It has nothing to do whether or not you go to church. It has nothing to do whether or not you're a Muslim, a Christian, a Sikh, an Indian. It has nothing to do with that. It is a matter of your perception. To them, to me, this is working for my good. There's something in this for me. To me, this is working for good. All things work together for your good. And so I'm going to close this lecture here this morning with these words. The recognition of yourself is the recognition of God. The recognition of God is the recognition of yourself. This is important because you will then understand, ladies and gentlemen, that as God, listen, is not mocked, you are not mocked. God is over here on this side of the equal sign. You're here on this side of the equal sign. There's different forms and aspects, but the same thing, the equality is there. Ooh, some of y'all having a heart attack. He said he equal to God. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, who being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God. I'm Dr. Flynn, and you have